Welcome to the Brew Pod. I'm here with Andrew Mainville, mountain man and a man of the wilderness.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me today. I just wanted to give a little bit of a background on how you and I met. Um, I know that technically it was through my husband, but at the time we were friends, Jeremy. I remember that he was doing a drawing because you had this table that you were making for your friends.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought, well, first off, the drawings were so cool, and I'll probably share them in my little blog so they can see what we're talking about here. But one of the most, I think, memorable moments I've had with you, which is kind of random, it was when we were at a certain place. And unfortunately, at the time, I was being stalked by my ex, and he had showed up to this place, public place. And then I ran around the room and I saw you, and I remembered you from Jeremy. And I remember just coming up to you being like, hey, can you just pretend that we're talking like friends or something, even though you barely know me? Can you talk to me? And you were so gracious, and you did. And we had a really good conversation. So I had to bring you here and share.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate it. I'm glad to talk to you. It's been a minute too.
Yeah, that's true. So
Yep.
I wanted you to share a little bit of a background on you.
Oh, there's so much in there. Yeah, I guess I don't know where to begin, but I'm just, I guess, present or past?
I guess we'll start with uh, a little bit.
Past. Yeah, so like I was always a weird kid. Um, yeah, it kind of reminds me. So I'm a Christian. Obviously, I believe in God, and I was raised in a Christian household, and I always grew up just kind of believing vicariously through my parents. But never actually believed for myself, and it was never real to me. But that's basically a lot of my childhood and teen years where life was struggling to cope with, depression and these things that I didn't know how to deal with or, how to even speak about them. But um, I just didn't feel close to God, and I didn't understand why, when they would pray for me, it wasn't working, or, like I saw that they believed in him. Why didn't, God love me? And, but yeah, I mean, that was just kind of like, that was my attitude towards, faith and all that, going up into my mid 20s. Just never really saw, God work in my life, and, kind of drifted towards other things. But, that was to my mid 20s, but then like there was a change in there, which I'll get more into later. But, then I started to see God in a different way, and it's been 10 years really, I think, about since, this change in my life has started, where I actually started to see God as God. And it's been quite a crazy ride, to say the least. But yeah, it's good. Everything's good.
Well, that is good. That's good that you were able to, kind of like, I guess, find yourself during that moment. But I guess like I remember that Jeremy was telling me that you went through a back injury,
Oh
and
yeah.
can you how did that affect you?
So that was um, basically like the catalyst, I guess, of change in my life. Um, Surprisingly enough, it was not my first time being hit. First time I got hit by a Windstar van. It was really stubborn. God had to hit me again. This time it was a motorcycle, and I ended up having a transverse process fracture in my back, um, which caused me a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. But I had not believing in God at the time, I had pursued other means to try to cope with that pain and, find relief in, well, mental relief, even because I wasn't able to work out. I wasn't able to work. I felt like I had no purpose. So I, turned to drugs and tried to find relief through that. Yeah. Which led me down a, pretty dark road. You want me to get into that?
Sure, if you're
No?
willing.
Oh, by all means. So yeah, where do I begin with that? So I got, first time I decided to buy drugs, I was also exposed to a chemical known as DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which I may or may not have also purchased. But that was like my road into something that was a lot more potent than, weed was like the right off the bat. But after using it, like I started finding relief from my depression because seeing these visions and experiencing feelings in a different way, like love in a more full way, which is something I couldn't feel in depression. You don't feel loved, you can't have those feelings. You're just unable to process it. It started to be what I believed would be my salvation from depression, I guess. And these things that, I would see furthered my belief in something that was, completely different than God. More like a Unitarian kind of view that we're all like, one, basically, that there is no God, we're all one. So completely just took me away from, finding God again, and took me down a really dark path, to the point where I was talking with my father one day about all these new beliefs that I had. I thought I was so smart, that I saw life in a different way, that, that he just couldn't see it because he, blindly believed in God. And he never judged me for anything that I said. But he just responded to, everything that I believed. And my thesis on life was that I'm going to pray that God will show you what you're really dealing with. Because I had told him I was doing drugs, that I was, seeing these things, and he didn't stop loving me, but just prayed. And that's what I needed, because about a week after, I'd never had a bad trip before. I'd used so many different psychedelics that I had started what they call hippie tripping, which is taking two at the same time. So I started doing that, but then everything started going bad. Everything started going negative and terrifying. And as I had mentioned to you earlier, I started seeing things in my apartment completely sober. I started feeling like weights on my chest, like something was on me. See things at the end of my bed at night, on the side of the road, like something was haunting my every step. And then it just kept getting worse, to a point where I'm not going to say that I was possessed, but I was really trying not to like move my arm, but it was still moving. Right. And it's going to sound ridiculous, but basically, like, I was fighting my own body to try not to bite my finger off. And I know that sounds completely stupid, and I don't have any, way to tell you why that was, but I just couldn't stop myself. Drew blood on my finger. But anyways, so that got to a point where I felt like I needed to do more drugs to get past this little barrier, that I needed to go farther in to figure my life out. So yeah, I took probably like 12 times a strong dose of LSD and, a similar amount of DMT at the same time. And for some reason I was in a bathtub and I basically went to hell, I guess I would describe it, where I yeah, completely lost touch with my surroundings. I couldn't remember who my family was, like what love felt like, what I was. I didn't have any sensation in my body. It was just, was completely void of anything. And it was dark and terrifying. I felt the complete absence of God's love is why I describe it as hell, because you would be cut off from it. And it's terrifying. And it felt like an eternity. It really did. Didn't find, couldn't pull myself out of it. But then, you know, with some brief moment of like clarity, I remember, you know, what my parents believe, you know, that God is able to pull us out of anything. And I did what everyone else does in those moments that you don't see a way out. You call it to God, you know, God save me. And as soon as those, you know, words, you know, left my mind, yeah, my eyes opened and I was in a cold bathtub. And I don't remember how long I was there for, but probably could have easily died. Can't pull myself out of the bathtub if I'm drowning. But yeah. So then I had another talk with my dad. You know, I started to see that maybe there was more to this spiritual world that I had, you know, believed originally, that maybe he was right. And yeah, so I started reading the Bible, and these like haunting things were still kind of present. What more I read, he talked a lot about fighting against these things. So, you know, I prayed again to God, and they left. But this was like the start of me trying to change myself, but not being able to fully commit in all areas. So, yeah, just kept taking drugs, unfortunately. And, but there was a moment that I committed my life to God, but then after, you know, I still took drugs, but they found me out, because your sins will find you out, right? So I remember one time I was driving with my friend, and I'd taken mushrooms and I had weed in my car because I didn't want to bring it in my parents' house. And long story short is that there was a taillight out and we got pulled over, and they only found my marijuana in the car, but not my friend's. That was right in the glove box. They just found what was mine, and I got a possession ticket, which also completely changed my life, because there's a lot of things I can't apply for. So, yeah, just kind of me struggling to figure out what my truth was now. And unfortunately, like that led me back into like being in a depressed state, because I went from having a clear belief in something and, you know, thought I had it all figured out, to me realizing that I had no idea what was actually going on. And, you know, I had purpose before, and then I really do think depression is the absence of purpose, because that's what you just don't feel good enough for anything, I guess. You know, like nothing has meaning to it anymore. Life has no purpose. But so that led me to, of course, take more drugs and try to find God through drugs again. You know, and unfortunately, that's probably the stupidest thing that I did. But I just kept taking more, trying to find God through that. But then there was like, I knew I was doing something wrong too. Like then there was that guilt. So then, you know, I'd be even more depressed. But it led to a moment basically in the woods where nature is like my refuge, really. It's where I go to find peace and just feel connected. So I went there one morning because I didn't feel anything and didn't really, you know, want to live anymore, to be honest. So I didn't feel loved by my parents, even though I knew they did. Clearly, you know, without judging me, they have unconditionally loved me. through all this, like, I'd kind of lost my purpose. I lost, I guess, my identity that I had found in these drugs. That, I felt that there was something more in my life, that I was destined for. Like, I found purpose in them, and it was leading me down this path. But then having that path taken away from me and realizing that I was at wrong, I I slipped back into depression. I mean, that really is what depression is. It's the lack of purpose in one's life, and I've definitely come to see that more recently. But get into that later. But yeah, so being a man, we're generally more hard-headed, and we don't learn things very easily. So I, of course, went back to drugs to find God, because smart. I actually remember reading the Bible on drugs. It sounds really stupid, and I regret it, but I went there. But yeah, so I kept trying to find God through that, and trying to find my purpose, and what my true beliefs were, but I just couldn't. And the more time went on, I just kept getting more and more depressed, and I didn't feel that connectivity anymore in using these drugs, and I didn't feel love. I just felt void, and I was really low one night and couldn't sleep. So I had gone to the woods, a place where I find peace and rest and just connected, and it always been a place of refuge for me in the past. And I just had gotten so low, I didn't want to live anymore, and I hadn't gotten to the point where I'd actively pursued suicide, but the thought was, I guess, permeated my mind more and more frequently of what if I just drove off the road while I was driving, and small thoughts like that. But so yeah, I'd started off on this hike to somewhere beautiful, Avalanche Lake, and I was going to spend the night there, on this bridge at the end of this lake, and just hope to find some rest and peace. But as I started off, I made it about a mile into the woods or so, and it was a earlier spring day, or I think it was spring anyways. June. Yeah, June. And I got to this point in the woods where there was a few cars in the parking lot. There was no one else on the trails that I had saw since I started off, and I was alone as far as I knew. And it's gonna sound crazy, but I heard an audible voice in the woods speak something very clearly to me, as if there was someone like right next to me, and it was that if I continued down this path, that I would come face to face with what I feared most. And at that point, it was I had this reoccurring nightmare of black bears attacking me and eating my family, and so not good dreams at all. So I was terrified of them, and like just hearing the voice, I stopped me in my tracks, and I was looking around me trying to find, if there was actually someone there, but I didn't see anyone. So I'm just shook it off, I guess. And like, just my mind playing tricks on me. And so I, started walking again, and a few steps later, I heard the same thing. If you continue down this road, you will come face to face with, your fears. And, kind of now I'm looking back on this, I'm seeing it in, kind of a different way, that I would come face to face with, like depression, I guess, and I would be confronted, with, both the physical fear, but also of like, my emotions, that I'd have to confront them anyways. So that time, the second time I heard it, it stuck in my mind. Like, okay, there's something's happening. Like, there's no one in sight. Like, this is probably gonna happen. I guess I believed it, but I decided that, like, if it really does happen, then so be it. I'd go out doing something that I love. Probably not the best way to go out, bears.
No, no.
But I committed to the path. One way or another, I was gonna go there. If it happened, so be it. If not, then whatever. So yeah, it was a beautiful day, beautiful mountain, beautiful lake. Got there like towards dusk and rolled out my little bed mat because didn't have enough money for a tent, onto this floating bridge at the end of the avalanche lake, and was laying there looking at stars. And I started to feel this bridge move. Man, I didn't think much of it because it was a way to get across to two trails, to the trail leading out. And I just thought I was another hiker. But being dark, I had realized there was no light that I saw, and who would walk on a bridge without light when you can just fall off? Probably not a hiker.
No.
So I had lifted up my head and turned on my headlamp, and there was this, not a huge black bear, but a good medium-sized black bear, sniffing my boots on my feet, which is just a wonderful memory to have. But I didn't know what to do. So I just kind of stood up, and I didn't say anything. I didn't, wave my arms at it. I guess all of the love that I had never felt, like being depressed, like the love of my parents and my brother and people that were close to me that I was unable to feel before that. It just came, rushing back to me. And I saw that there was a reason to live, that, if I died, these people would be, sad. And the empathetic nature in me is like, I can't hurt anyone. I can't do this to them. That's selfish of me. So I did what I did in the bathtub. I remembered, God again. And I called out to him, and the bear just turned around and walked back into the woods, looked back at me one more time, and then just disappeared. As soon as I uttered those words. The interesting thing was, then I turned around and my headlight, illuminated the path, above, and there was another black bear that ran in the direction that I had to go if I wanted to leave. So, terrified of bears, two black bears in a minute. It was the start of a great night.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I ended up making the choice to run the 6 miles in the middle of the night back to the trail, leading out. That was fun. Lots of bruises from that. It's a good time. But yeah, so in that moment, I had, I guess God had reaffirmed to me that he was real, and that he was always there with me, I guess, if that makes sense. And that even though I didn't feel him or necessarily like believe in him fully in those moments, he was still watching out for me, still protecting me. And he was always there when I asked, even though like I didn't deserve it, right? But none of us do. And it was a little overwhelming, I guess, but yeah. So I had kind of committed to not using drugs anymore. And I'm not going to say that I never have, passed that date, because it's something that I, had struggled with for quite a while. But, every time I did something, like my sins would find me out, really, because, if I'm professing to believe in God and I'm doing something that's not right, then it's going to find me out. And it did every time. But there was one other thing that I just wanted to mention, leading with this whole drug thing, was that, using all these things and hearing, I really did hear like things talking to me, and I saw entities, and there's no words to describe what I saw, but like they would say things to me, and they would speak these little pieces of truth that would, end up coming true. Things about my friends, things about my life, things that would happen in the day. And it made me invest in that truth so much more, because, yeah, I mean, it made me feel like I was special, that these things were, only for me, that, yeah, anyways. But then there was other like lies planted in those things that changed what I believed, like I pushed farther away from God. But anyways, there was this one truth that was very specific, and so specific that is, when I heard this date, I can't remember the date. It's in my phone somewhere, and I have a reminder to. It pops up every year. But that was that if I didn't stop using drugs before this date, that I would go to jail. And being very specific, I just put it in my calendar and kind of forgot about it, right? So me and my parents had this really a once in a lifetime opportunity to stay at this place called Windfall Pond. It's in New York, and it's a house with like bunk houses on its own private lake. And it was just me and my parents on the entire lake. We had it all to ourselves, but it came through like someone my parents met through the church, the original Mr. Planner's Peanut. I can't remember his name, but he was the guy that used to, be the Mr. Peanut.
Oh,
But
that's
he
cool.
it's completely random thing that is just, it was such a blessing to my parents and I. It really just deepened our connection together, talking, I was sharing with them like things that I had gone through. And but yeah, just there, we were sitting there the first night, reading and getting ready for dinner, and that reminder popped up in my phone that, had I not stopped using drugs, I would be in prison, right? So I thought it was fascinating, right? I'm here instead of in prison, right? And my parents and I, we really, yeah, it was interesting. But we come back to that to our house and look at the newspaper from that date, and yeah, there was like 28 people arrested or something like that on a big drug bust in Franklin County. And I have the newspaper clipping sitting there too in my little journal thing. So I thought that was a little extra interesting. God looking out for me, and yeah.
That's just like mind blowing. It's the
Yeah,
best
it
way
blew
I
my
can
mind.
describe. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I do remember
But
that bust too. That was like a very like well, from people from our area, that was like the biggest news.
right. Yeah. So like, after I got back, I guess I started seeing that I guess God's hand was, I guess started looking back on how many times God had actually saved me from, my foolishness, really. I mean, all the things that I have done to, where I could have hurt myself, could have potentially hurt others, which I never have, but like there were times there that I probably could have really easily, and it gave me so much regret, I guess, and just, but also like the desire to change, I guess, and to really see the value in like putting the stuff behind me. So I guess I'd say I was more intent on pursuing a relationship with God. And I think religion often gets confused with relationship. Is that religion is just, it is what it is. There's different denominations and all that, but the important thing is actually having a relationship with God. And I know that might sound weird, like divine being, like how can you have a relationship with him? But like that's why we were created, to be in relation with him. And that's, from the beginning of the Bible, that's what it was about. It was about God being with Adam and Eve, and was a relationship. So I started to pursue, I guess, my developing my beliefs more, like really figuring out what was right and wrong for me, and just kind of, I guess I was hungry, I guess, to know more. But that didn't stop me from messing up all the time, because I'm a man, and it was a struggle there for a while, but eventually I came to this opportunity, which was to move out to Washington. A really, really weird series of events, I guess I would say. I had started looking at property in New York, actually. I was going to buy my grandma's land, but then one day my job blew up at Alcoa. There was a fire in one of the furnaces, which was normal. We just always saw flames shooting out of the back of it all the time and thought nothing of it. But it had gotten so hot and so high that it had reached the aluminum dust on the roof joists, which is an explosive. So there was a big boom. All the dust, from the rest of the roof had fallen off. It was all smoky in there, and basically I watched my job go up in flames. Also living on like 85% of what I was making. So I didn't really have a lot of wiggle room in there. So I'm like, this is the end. I'm going down, going bankrupt. But it was a bad day. I remember kind of falling back into that depression, thinking like, I just started changing my life, started pursuing God. Like, why is this, happening to me? Which I've started to come to believe over the years, that suffering is good. And I know that's like a really weird thing to say, but everything that I've been through has changed my life. And once you're through it and you can look back on it, if you choose to, overcome it rather than succumb to it, it's a positive. It changes something in you. It builds character, it builds strength, and this did. For a while there, I had mono, and I was working like 60 hours a week, and I didn't know I had mono. It was horrible. It was like hell on earth at work. But because of that fire, they had moved us around quite a bit, and I was working in another, place, different, not the casting house, somewhere in there, somewhere in Alcoa. But it was a lot more hours, and they eventually got to the point where they had to either lay off some people because there was too many people, I guess, for the work that was, there. So because of the power contract they had to offer people monetary buyouts or, early retirement or something like that. And before the monetary, relocation, whatever they call it, was a thing, I never thought about moving. But I got the weirdest like piece, like this is something that I need to pursue. Like there's somewhere else I need to be. So originally, Washington wasn't available, I think, or I had applied to Washington, Texas, and North Carolina. And North Carolina called and they didn't have anything, which is the place I was hoping for if Washington didn't work out. But like once you turn down something, then you can't accept it again. Like the position's gone. And that happened with Texas, but Washington hadn't called yet. So I didn't know, like, if I turn down this, then I'm, missing this opportunity. So I just felt like I needed to, that Washington was the place I needed to be. So I turned them down. And I think it was the day after that Washington called me and told me that they had a job for me. So yeah, about like a month after I was pursuing, buying property, I was on my way out to Washington to live. No one up here, no family or anything, just felt like it was where I needed to be. So yeah, that Washington's a whole nother chapter in my life. I guess I would describe it not so much as rebellion, but like really trying to figure out these deep-rooted like lies that I had believed about myself, since I was a child, and affected my perception of others and like their intentions for me. So my dad had driven out here with me, a great time nonetheless. Made it in 2 days, which was rough. But when he got out here, we were looking for churches, and he went with me to two places. But the first place was just where I felt like I needed to be, and that was Grace City Church. It just felt right. So anyways, he left and I started going to church, but then I met this wonderful family that kind of adopted me, and they were my surrogate family out here. But yeah, the struggles never really stopped. They would come and go. At times I'd come out here. I had started taking medication for ADHD, Adderall, and that had definitely helped me be a little bit more clear in speaking, a little bit more, I guess, less introverted. I was able to connect a little bit easier. So, but I had struggled with, do I need this because, God made me perfectly? Why do I need medication to function properly? So I had struggled with that for years. But like every time I decided, like, okay, I'm good, I can do this on my own, I don't need this anymore, and I got off of it, I would sink into depression because I would get reclusive, I'd get emotionally drained through friendships, and I was never fully energized. So I would retreat and become reclusive when the only thing that would help me get out of that is relationships. And I couldn't see that for the longest time. And I'm only like starting to realize that, relationship is the key in any suffering, is that we can't do it on our own, that we need other people there to speak the truth into our lives when we can't feel it. I don't know. I had a hard time feeling loved by other people, and being able to like let go and be myself because I didn't think that they would like who I was. And I think that for one, it like limits the amount of friends, that I don't know I have, because I have a really hard time trusting people, like with, I guess, being vulnerable because I was scared to get hurt, right? And so like I would distance myself from relationships because I don't know, I felt like I would get hurt by them when I needed them. Like that I couldn't trust them fully. So I couldn't say what was on my mind, that if I did, that they would hurt me. So in those horrible times in my life, even though I knew I needed people, I couldn't trust them. Like I didn't, I wasn't able to. And that's just a hurt that's been perpetuated through a lot of my life, because I am a naturally trusting and empathetic person, where I want to see the good in everyone, but so often it was betrayed. So a hurt develops, and unfortunately, it keeps me from something that I need. And that lie was also perpetuated out here. But in that, it helped me see the root of this fear. And it's just that I didn't feel worthy of being loved, I guess. And I think that's, something that where like a lot of this depression has come from, is that I wasn't worthy of my friends or family's love, that I had done nothing to deserve it. And that led me back to the thought that, even though I didn't deserve it, they still loved me. And it was, a clear example of God's love for us, that we don't deserve it, but He gives it unconditionally, no matter, what frame or state of mind, or, what our beliefs are. It's still there. Which is kind of, again, suffering was the catalyst of change in my life. It helped me see that was something that I was holding on to, that I was refusing to let myself be vulnerable with people, and I needed it. But because of that lie, I wasn't able to. So, the past few years have been me trying to, I guess, be more trusting and trying to connect with people when I need help. And as you and Jeremy know, is that I have these periods of reclusivity, and then 6 months later I'll show up like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm still alive.
Hey guys.
Hi. But yeah, that was one of the things that you're just moving out here. I don't think I would have learned it in New York, that I needed to be away from family and kind of do things on my own to, I guess, see God meet me in it, and see God heal areas in my life that I didn't even really think, were, it was a wound. But that is partly why I believe that, suffering is beautiful, is because, it exposes areas of our life that, we might not have ever seen without it, that, we're able to be a more fuller version of ourselves because of it, and be happier and actually experience joy to a full extent. But yeah, I mean, just moving out here, that wasn't the stop of all the struggles, and love was one of those things. But I'd also, 6 months after I had, well, I was 5.5, I had thrown my back out again out of work, and I wasn't able to really walk. I was kind of hobbling around there for a bit, but I had to make a choice that if I continued working at Alcoa, this would probably be my reality for the rest of life. Would be a cycle of disability and going back to work in the furnace. So I had to make the choice to try to pursue something that would be more beneficial for my health. And through that family that I met at church the first day, they told me about UPS. So I went against what I'd say most people would do, trade a almost 6-figure job in for part-time, making $10 an hour. Unfortunately, I was still in debt, so it got to the point where I was homeless for 4 months. I lived in my car.
Wow.
But yeah, I could have lived with other people, but being a stubborn man, I decided to, go for the experience. But um, I guess interesting tidbit about UPS and just the whole situation that I had there. Um, when I first started working there and I made the choice, I felt like that's where God wanted me to be. But usually you had to wait about 2 to 3 years to become a full-time driver, which was the end hope. Um, it How great of a job UPS is, like, blew my mind, like, until I actually found out about it. But you know, I was committed to working part-time and making it work until like I could get there. But God provided for me in that, even though I was homeless, but I did have a place to stay. Just stubbornness, kept me from that. But he I was working, full-time hours within like 4 months of me starting at UPS, which was, still considered part-time, but I was making plenty of money to afford an apartment again. So I had saved up some before I actually got another one. But um, so the way UPS works is a seniority thing. So whoever starts first gets basically the full-time position when it comes up. They're able to bid for it. So whoever has the highest seniority gets it. So there was, as I was working full time, it had usually taken 2 to 3 years, but within a year I was full-time driving. And the guy that had started a year after me had to wait another 2 years before he got a full-time position. So just making that decision when I felt like I needed to make it instead of sticking around um, the other 3 weeks I needed to get the last part of the monetary buyout from Alco, which was $10,000. Because I left early, I got a much better job that I'm able to do. Recently, I was pain free, completely. But it's also just helped, given me a better lifestyle because I didn't have to work shift work anymore. I could do things in the afternoon, and it was, really like a great job for someone like me. Work as fast as I want, and but yeah, just from that to the following few years, I unfortunately had that deep wound hurt again. Just choosing to trust someone, but then being pushed away. So I had allowed myself to be loved and love them in return, but then I was pushed away. And there's lots of things that happen, and it's I hold no ill will against them, but it's just things would keep hitting it. But every time I went through a little bit more suffering, it was healed also a little bit farther. So this was just kind of like a cycle that had I guess just continued to show up in my life. There would be times of hurt and then times of healing, but it helped me get closer to people that would stick around, I guess, and like true friends that, like you and Jeremy, that continued to be there for me even though I wasn't present in your lives. You didn't stop caring for me and reaching out. So it started to make me appreciate those relationships more. And when I did go through those depression spells, because everyone goes through hard times, and the time that before I sought help from friends just kept getting smaller. Like I was choosing to reach out to them quicker, I guess, realize that I need them in my life to actually heal and then get better. So yeah, that kind of like I mean, there's a bunch of other stuff that happens in there, but it all came to like, I guess, like an apex, like to a point in these past 4 months that I yeah, just kind of had all those feelings come rushing back of that void, that not being able to be loved. um, just had known in my life, because I had pushed them all away, and I didn't have the strength to reach out to them anymore. Because I mean, I'm sure as everyone experienced in 2020, it's been, a time of seclusion. We're not around friends, and for people going through, mental health issues, depression, I mean, we tend to drift towards that, but that's not what's going to help us get out of it. So now that there's even more of a push to be separated, uh, a lot of people have gone through some really hard mental battles, and one of them was my little sister in September. She had started going down the same path that I did, um, you know, pursuing happiness through drugs. And she had started to come to the same conclusions that I had. And, we had talks about it, and just, she had originally, been saved and believed in God, but she had drifted away. And, she saw this as her truth now. But I knew where it led me, to that point where God takes away all the happiness that you find in those drugs. And I guess it's, wouldn't say God takes it away, but that joy is fleeting. It's not meant to last. It's not going to fill that hole in your heart that, I believe that God's the only thing that can fill it. But yeah, she got to the point where she just couldn't accept being loved, or feeling loved, even though my parents were trying to, and constantly told her, but she just couldn't feel it. And God gave her I guess she had talked to my mom before, yeah, but she just felt God gave her like a completely sober vision, and feeling, more than anything, of His love, of the love that envelops you. And she, I think, wanted to feel that again, that she understood that, love was real, but once it was gone, like once that vision was gone, she missed it. She wanted it. She wanted that feeling again. So I don't know what happened, but she got to the point where she took her own life. And yep, that that was hard. I viewed a lot of it as my fault, because it didn't stay present in her life, because I was selfish, um, even though I knew where she was headed, and there was nothing really pressing going on in my life. But I just chose not to pursue her. And I know it's not my fault, because we can't change that choice. There's nothing that we could do to, you know can't blame ourselves, but we can't help it because I knew that's where she was going. But I had suppressed that feeling of dealing with her loss, for months. And I often express my grief through writing. And as soon as my parents had called me that morning when she, took her life, was that I need to write about it, but I just didn't want to feel that pain. So I suppressed it, and I busied myself with video games, which is something that I've always struggled with, to find happiness and depression, escape in a video game. But that only lasts so long before that grief and that pain comes back to the, surface. And it's our choice to either deal with it, or, be overcome by it, and, suppress it, and then be another hurt in our life that we, will affect a lot of, aspects of life. And yeah, on the I had slipped back into depression in the past 4 months, and come Christmas Day, I just felt like I needed to write about it, and I did, and it was good, and it was painful, um, but it was healing. But unfortunately, dealing with that guilt, processing what I actually had felt, pushed me so far down into a hole that, yeah, I was like I said, just completely void of feeling love and completely empty. That, yeah, couldn't get the thought out of my head of taking my own life. And, I hadn't had this feeling for, since I moved out here. Thought it was something that I had dealt with. And it came back pretty bad for 3 days there. I wasn't sleeping. And, this thought would just, it was overwhelming. So I chose to trust a friend this time rather than trying to deal with it on my own. And yeah, had a talk that I was naturally embarrassed about, but like I know I needed to let someone in and just let them know what I'm going through. So I did, and ended up giving him my pistol just to you know be on the safe side. But when I did share it with him, that's when, I don't know, I felt relief, I guess, that that weight wasn't mine to bear alone, that there was someone willing to help me with that. And I know there always has been, all these, I have a lot of great friends that have always stuck with me, but it's just so hard for me to trust someone and open up to them that I hadn't. But yeah, that's what um, this year has kind of led me to, is just the importance of mental health, but also that how important relationships are and how important it is to be honest with the people that you're close to, because even if you are embarrassed by what you're going through, it's just opening up to them and being around them. You're able to start healing, because we are made for community, and through each other we're able to see things in a different way and to heal and process them. And there's just someone there that's in your corner. And I guess it's just partly I think I needed to feel that emptiness again and that pain, to kind of remember what my little sister went through, but also to give me purpose, I guess, to be more present in the people, and people that, my friends, my close friends, people that matter to me, and just people who are suffering too, that, I don't know, just to encourage them, I guess, to be open with the people that they're close to, be open with their family, to trust them. And I'm not going to say that trust is always going to be rewarded, but more often than not, the people that you find close will, be there for you, and hold what you tell them, with, um, I don't want to say value, but just, I don't know, respect your honesty, I guess, and try to help you through it. But I don't know, just, yeah, I guess that suffering can be good. Even the darkest parts of it, we can still find healing in it, and we can overcome those parts of our life that have dragged us down in the past, that no state of mind or situation is permanent, that there is always hope. Yeah, I don't know.
Wow. I just want to give you a hug so bad.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Um, so I know that you actually wrote a really beautiful poem for her that you actually shared on your Facebook. And I don't know if you'd like to share a bit of that, or I can also share that on the blog.
So yeah, there's that poem that I wrote for her. I guess I might as well share it since we've been talking about it. So like I guess the imagery would be more clear if you knew my sister, Danielle Baldwin. But she was, yeah, just probably one of the most unique individuals that I've ever met. Um, yeah, just completely random in every way. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I wrote this for her, and hopefully you can see a little bit of her in it. Bear with me while I try to read this. Um, there was a sassy girl that brought vibrant life, laughter, and joy back into my parents' house. She became their daughter, my sister. You are family, you are loved. Returning home, while usually joyful, tears of loss rested, swelling in the corners of our eyes, fearful to fall, as if falling was accepting this new, cold reality. Sleepless nights spent chasing away thoughts, found peace within distraction. If I stop, torment will find me. I miss you, dear sister. Scouring my thoughts, old memories, for a glimpse of you, to find you, to hold you tight, to tell you suffering is momentary in the light of eternal. This will pass, all will be well. I see you sitting upon precipice, high above. Beauty envelops you. You found peace. Your face turned away. I call out your name to see you once again. Only silence returns. Yet I hear, yet your voice, faint as a whisper, I hear within the wind, swaying the pines. I hear your voice, yet you vanished, as mist flees, warmth cast by rising sun. Well, no longer by my side, I see you within the beauty we shared, the last day we shared, marveling at intricacies found within life. Your smile warmed any room, your laughter brought infectious joy, your heart welcomed the broken, your mind sought to uplift, your life bestowed life to those around. Where life surrounds, I find you, your laughter in the rustling leaves, your heart within the serenity of the wilderness, your mind in the stillness of resting water, your life in all that is green, growing vibrantly. Memory of your life, laughter and joy burns like wildfire in the hearts of those forever blessed by your short time with us, forever remembered, cherished. Without equal measure, our lives forever have changed. Though you've gone where I cannot, you left me, yet you stayed close. Forever in my heart, I find you now within the wilderness. Uh, that was a lot of the imagery that I used in that poem was from the last time that we went hiking together in the Adirondacks. And just one last memory, sharing something that we both loved so much. Just one last day, forever remembered, I guess, joyously. And yeah, what a day it was indeed. But yeah, I guess that's where I'll forever find my sister. Just every time I go out into the wilderness, I just feel her there with me, you know. But yeah,
Um, Thank you so much for sharing that. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, she was a beautiful lady.
Um, so I wanted to ask you, um, if you could go back knowing what you know now to yourself, what would present Andrew say to young Andrew?
I think it would come down to be to take more chances, to let people in, to not be so jaded by the times that I was hurt, to not accept love when it was there in front of me. Because, as this recent, experience I went through near Christmas was how much of a difference it made when I let someone into that pain, and how much, I guess, quicker it was to help me overcome it and at least see like the light within it. But also, I guess, to look back when I don't feel loved or feel, I guess, God, in my life, is that I can look back and see Him clearly on all the times that He's changed or, well, completely altered my life, that He was always present when I didn't feel Him before. So that I should trust that He's still there even if I don't feel Him at the moment. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. And then my final question for you is, how long have you been sober for?
So as I mentioned before, I am incredibly stubborn. I will say going on 2 years now, but there was a moment in there where I thought like I had a firm understanding of spiritual nature, and that if I had tried it again, maybe it would be right for me. Because, with anyone and using drugs to pursue happiness and joy, it's like something that never really goes away. And we can forget how, I guess we forget like the true nature of what it is, and we're lured back to it. And I was in LA, almost 2 years ago. I ended up taking LSD again, and what was supposed to be like a drop or two, I think was more like a squirt. So I don't really know how much I had, but yeah, it turned sour pretty quickly. Again, kind of went back to that hell that I missed so much. Yeah, I completely like forgot who I was again. Didn't know what I did. Didn't know who my parents were. I mean, I didn't even have a thought of parents. I thought I had taken too much, to the point where I actually thought about calling 911, which is, anyone who knows me, that's pretty far. But like, the worst part was that I saw that my choice had affected my friends too, which, yeah, tore my heart to pieces, I guess. Was that I had caused them also to have a bad experience and hurt them through my choice to do LSD that night. So there was a lot of stuff that happened that night, but just it actually turned into like almost a positive, was that I had not been able to find my way out again. And then I remembered that God had always saved me in those moments like that. So I called out to Him again, but this time it was that I had to talk to my friends about God. that he was trying to pull us out of this bad trip. And so I had diminished them on psychedelics. But then as soon as I started talking to them, then things started to change. Like, this was something that I had to do. But anyways, it just kind of reaffirmed that it might have got me to where I am today, but that it's something that needs to be left in my past. I guess even in that like choice to, go back to where I was before, God still met me in, like I said, but I guess that it's possible that even when we're doing something that's not necessarily beneficial for us or even harmful for us, that God can still meet you in it and, pull you out of it and, even turn that negative into a positive. And yeah, I guess just, yeah, yep, that's what I want to say. Yep. Okay.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story, because I know that just sharing these raw pieces of ourselves can be very vulnerable. So I really appreciate you doing that and sharing Danielle's, story as well. And normally I end my podcasts with affirmations for everyone, but you actually brought a special Irish, which my grandma would be very proud, blessing. So I would love for you to, instead of affirmations this time, to end with your blessing.
Yeah, I just figure, it's a good way to go out, right? Just to bless people. And yeah. So, all right, there you go. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. May God be with you and bless you. May you see your children's children. May you be poor in misfortune, rich in blessings. May you know nothing but happiness from this day forward. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind always be at your back. May the warm rays of the sun fall upon your home. And may the hand of a friend always be near. May green be the grass you walk on. May blue be the skies above you. May pure be the joys that surround you. May true be the hearts that love you.
Thank you. With that, I want to leave this with just having you share the platforms, because you do photography. If you could share your Instagram handle.
It's Andrew of the Mountains _ between the words.
That's perfect. And I will also add that to this link. And with that, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and I am proud of you. Until next time on the Brie Pod.